Coming up on this week's episode, Talking Points features a terrible first half for Chelsea and a terrible full game for Manchester City. We look at the new controversial handball rule. Wonders of White is back, and so is a story from Liam. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to View from the Sideline Podcast, Episode 3. It's Chris here and Liam is here as always. Hello, Liam.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm alright, Liam. Smiling from ear to ear, I would imagine.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Second
performance.
Second Monday in a row. You've come onto the podcast and you've won a game and kept a clean sheet.
We love Mondays. I mean, last season I think we won one game on every single day of the week. But yeah, this season we could just carry on playing on Mondays. That's fine. Give us all good kick-off times like it was today, 5:45, and yeah, we're smashing it.
You've almost doubled your wins from last year now. So, but no,
we've
good
already
performance
kept
from Villa.
more clean sheets than I think we did last season. So,
you certainly keep them more than Chelsea, mate. So yeah. So anyway, obviously got a lot to talk about this week with Chelsea, Man City, and we're going to try and discuss the new handball rule that no one seems to be aware of until this weekend. But have you got a teaser this week, Liam?
I do have a teaser. So after the roaring success that was the career path of a former footballer, I thought I'd go along a similar route. So this week, I want you to name the career path of the player who's played for these clubs. So he started his professional career in 1993. That's the only clue you're getting so far. And he played for the Melbourne Knights. And then he went to Dynamo Zagreb, Celtic, Leeds United, Middlesbrough, and Newcastle.
Oof.
So I'll remind you of those clubs again later.
Yeah.
On in the podcast, but you want to know whose career followed that path. There's a few potential clues I can give you if you're struggling a little bit later.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to think about that throughout. I think Leeds, Middlesbrough, and Newcastle. Now, there cannot be many players that have played for all three of those, so I'm going to have to get my thinking hat on, I think.
A ponder.
We will move on to this week's talking points, and we're going to start at the Hawthorns for the West Brom Chelsea game. More about Chelsea than West Brom, but it was a game of two halves, and unfortunately for Chelsea, three mistakes at the back have cost them probably what should have been an easy 3 points. Again, to make three mistakes in one half and for that to cost you, you know that something still isn't quite right there. I was really surprised that Chilwell wasn't playing actually, because he played in the Carabao Cup, but apparently he still wasn't fully match fit, so that's why he didn't play. So he had Alonso, and he just had an absolutely terrible game. I'm really struggling to think about the last time he actually had a good game for Chelsea, which is still struggling to find, but a really, really poor first half from Chelsea, and it was just constantly giving the ball away, messing about with it at the back, mistakes from Alonso, Thiago Silva, and then from the corner, Reece James kind of let his man go and he had a free tap in. But I don't know what you thought about the first half, Liam.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you've got new players at the back, understandably. So, you know, Thiago Silva making a mistake on his debut, you could kind of say, well, maybe he's not quite up to speed with things. It's a new league for him, but Alonso's played in the Premier League for a number of years now, shouldn't be making those kind of mistakes. Reece James, I think, from the corner, it just looks like everybody does their job in pushing out. And he just decides to stay back, and it looks like he plays about 3 or 4 West Brom players on side. But, you know, I would credit West Brom just as much. They were clinical. You know, a lot of teams struggle at the bottom, will probably be given 3 of those chances and maybe not take every single one of them. I thought Callum Robertson's finishing was spot on, especially for the first goal. And it shows promise for them. But then, like you say, game of two halves. The second half was the West Brom that we've seen so far, and probably the Chelsea that I think we're going to see later on in this. You look like a completely different team, but attacking wise, some of the play, Hudson-Odoi's goal was fantastic. It looks like Havertz is linking in very well.
He changed, Hudson-Odoi completely changed the game when he came on. He just injected that bit of pace that we needed going forward. I have to say, I thought Mount had an incredible second half, and it was kind of him. I think that his goal kind of pushed us forward. I know we left it incredibly late to get the third goal, but I think being 3-0 down at half time, getting it back to 3-0, you can complain that we made huge mistakes in the first half, but to get a point, to salvage a point out of that, I think it shows, a good willingness to get forward and when we need to, obviously he's changed the formation about 3 or 4 different times in that second half just to adapt. He brought Giroud on for Thiago Silva, so we had yet another attacking forward with 3 strikers on at once. I thought Havertz had a good second half. I thought first he sort of looked out of sorts a little bit, but he seems to link up better with, like you said, with Hudson-Odoi, that sort of fast player that's either playing beside him or in front of him. But I thought some of the passes he made, he just made look so effortlessly, and I think he's going to need time. Both of them, him and Werner, I think are going to need time. But like you said, you can probably see in the next sort of couple of games, I think they'll move on from this and work better.
Havertz almost reminds me a little bit of Mesut Ozil in that everything he does, just like you say, looks a bit effortless. Yeah, I think he's got good range of passing, but I think he works better when he's got runners around him. Almost with his back to goal.
Yeah, that's what
if he can get the ball 20 yards out and there's runners around him, he will always pick somebody out, which going forward I think is going to be important. I mean, you've got pace around him as well, obviously, with when Pulisic is back and Werner's obviously extremely quick, Hudson-Odoi. And do you see it as a point gained from where you were at half time, or is that 2 points dropped?
I know Lampard said after the game it's 2 points that we're going to have to, get back somewhere this season. So he obviously sees it's, we've dropped points. Before the game I was quite confident, but that soon went to shreds. I've seen the defence, but
confident as well.
I
loaded my fantasy team with Chelsea players, and obviously we have a history with West Brom being our rivals, and I was extremely surprised by half time.
I think look, if I was to say at the start again, I'd say at the start of the game it was 3 points. It would have been points dropped. I think going into that second half, I think if we were to get up, I would have thought, in my head, if we get a point out of this, we'll be very, very lucky. So I have to see it as a point gained, but, at the end of it, we should be beating a team like West Brom, tricky team. But that guy up front as well, is it Callum Robinson, the guy that scored both goals?
Yeah.
He scored 3 Premier League goals, right? He was obviously at Sheffield United last season. He scored against Chelsea last season as well. So he's only ever scored against Chelsea. So, it's a shame, but I'm confident that sort of in a month's time, I think we would have sorted ourselves out. I think we need to get Chilwell back, ASAP, because Alonso was just getting torn apart. There was one point in the game where the centre-back took it out wide and outpaced him, and Alonso brought him down and ended up getting booked, and that was in the 7th minute. So it's not like he was tired. But I think just Lampard just needs to find that formation that he thinks that the players are comfortable with playing, because obviously he tried the 2 strikers this weekend. It didn't work. So second half he put Werner almost out wide with Tammy in the middle. I think Havertz's best position is by far going to be behind the striker. I don't think putting him out wide, he's anywhere near as effective as what he'll be. Like you said, with his back to goal, he's always going to be looking either side of him to try and put someone through. And I think him and Werner, will get that connection eventually. We have a long history of buying strikers turn out to be absolute crap. So I'm hoping he's not one of them. And he did show glimpses. He had a good shot on Saturday. Would have gone in, albeit it was caught a deflection on the way. So but 3-3 at the end of the day. A point's a point, I guess. Disappointed we didn't win the game, but after the first stuff we had, I never expected us to get anything from that. So
one thing I will say from, I think, a West Brom point of view, and this is coming from a team where I think in the year we got relegated, we were in games either drawing or winning, and ended up conceding late goals. And a lot of the time last year as well, we were in good positions. I think we lost more points from winning positions than anybody else.
Yeah.
I think from West Brom, that is a worrying sign that you're 3-0 up and you've drawn 3-3, because if that comes a bit of a habit, you're really looking at struggling. You're going into the last 10 minutes of every game that you play from now on and thinking, well, here we go, we're going to concede again. So I think they need to stamp that out quickly.
Definitely, yeah.
It wasn't down to their mistakes, I will say that. The 3 good Chelsea goals, I mean, the last one you might argue Johnson can palm it out, but Abraham's on the spot. He's in the right place, so I don't think you can.
It's just one of those, isn't it?
Blame them. Yeah, it was one of those, but maybe a point gained. You never know come the end of the season, do you?
Yeah, might come in handy. So we'll move on now to. Well, I suppose the result might not be as surprising, but I guess the scoreline is probably more surprising than anything. But Manchester City losing at home by 5-2. Well, maybe they should stop fouling. Maybe they should stop fouling players inside the box, and maybe they wouldn't be in such bad trouble. But to give away 3 penalties, Pep Guardiola must be absolutely fuming that they've given away 3 penalties in one game. I can't even remember the last time I actually seen 3 penalties given to one team, in a game. But I have to credit Jamie Vardy. His finishing was on point this weekend.
Keeps going, doesn't he?
He just
33.
Just doesn't seem to be getting any worse. He seems to be getting better and quicker, which is frightening, really. And from a Man City point of view, it's just very out of character for them. And again, if any team needs another defender, which I think they have actually gone out and bought today, in Ruben Diaz, which is a shame for all Football Manager fans out there, because he was always a good player to get in. So that's another one gone. And he's probably the right sort of person they need. What that means for Ake, I don't actually know, because he obviously Guardiola is very keen on Laporte. So whether they go to a back 3, I'm not too sure. But I just think you have to credit Leicester for this more than anything. I think they just, Man City were dominating sort of the first sort of 20-25 minutes, and then obviously the penalty just kind of seems to switch their mentality, and they just lost all focus. But Leicester were really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting after the game. Normally you get a game with that scoreline, the managers are quite diplomatic and the players are quite diplomatic. It was interesting to see Guardiola and Rodri both coming out and attacking Leicester and saying they didn't come to play. But they scored 5 goals against you, so they must have come to play. It's not like they sat out for a 0-0, was it?
Because sit back, did they?
That to me seems just a bit of a stupid comment. I thought Leicester played absolutely perfectly. I thought Rodgers' tactics was spot on. They sat when they needed to sit, and they made it difficult for City to pass through them. Yes, they let City have a lot of the ball, but the midfield for Leicester, I think, is that good. I think it's basically as good as any in the league. They just sat and watched Man City ping the ball around. I mean, this is Kevin De Bruyne. It's a player of the year. They just sat and watched him, let him do his thing, and then they all sort of pushed as one, won the ball back and counter-attacked, and that was what led to the penalties. It's what led to the goals.
Yeah.
And at the back, City just couldn't handle it. I've got to admit, I didn't watch the game live. I called it up after, so I knew the score when I was watching it. But I saw 3 penalties, and after the weekend we've had, here we go. There's going to be 3 dodgy penalties, and that's why we've got so many. But they weren't really. I don't think. I thought they were all pretty clear penalties. And yeah, Leicester. At the minute, you've got to say, I know we're only a few games in, probably looking like the team playing well. Maybe not quite, but maybe the nearest to Liverpool in terms of form, shall we say?
Yeah. To be fair,
how they're trying to play.
If they hadn't restarted last season as bad as they did, they'd probably be in the Champions League right now. So I think Tielemans is probably their most influential player. I think they need to keep him and they need to keep him fit. I think he works so hard in that midfield, and he sort of lets Maddison do his own thing. He like give him more of a free role with Tielemans in that team, because they know that he's going to sit back and go forward. He's sort of that box to box player. But yeah, I was just overall very impressed with Leicester. But obviously for Man City, no sort of world-class striker at the moment. Obviously no Aguero. I'm not saying Jesus is world-class, but he's out now for 3 weeks. Obviously they're to call upon Delap.
Yeah.
Who I really wanted him to take throw-ins. But he didn't take any. I just wanted to see if it was in the DNA. I never got a chance. But to be fair, he did at the crossbar when he came on.
He played all right.
And he was working hard, but I don't think Man City can use the excuse that they don't have an out-and-out striker, because they've got De Bruyne, they've got Sterling, they've got Mahrez, they've got players that are capable of scoring goals. So it's not like they've got no one in their team that can score. But we'll just have to wait and see. The problem is it's so early on in the season to try and sit down and like dissect, Man City, going to be terrible this year, or Leicester going to win the league. Football's changed this season. And we're going to talk about it in a minute, but a lot seems to have changed since the new season started. So many goals at the moment, just an incredibly amount of goals, but none going in Aston Villa's net there.
No.
the only team to keep, no goals conceded. But we'll have to see what happens to Man City. Obviously, I think they've paid 63 million. Was it for Diaz today?
I think that's what I saw. Yeah.
They've obviously pinpointed where they need to, sort of tighten things up. I wish, Chelsea would take a tip out of their book, because I think Chelsea could do with another defender at least before the window shuts. But whether we're going to see that, I don't know. Obviously, the window closing next week, I think. So
I think it'll be interesting where it leaves. Obviously, you've mentioned Ake, and you said they'll Ake, Laporte, Diaz, Otamendi, unless he's going the other way. I saw rumours he might be going the other way. I'm not too sure about that. Garcia as well, who played at the weekend. Where does it leave John Stones? Because I think if you ask Southgate, he's probably still in with a chance of getting in the England team.
Well, yeah, this is what I mean.
Maybe fifth choice.
You look for England at the moment. We need English centre backs more than anything at the moment. Maguire is okay, but you look back 10 years when we have Ferdinand and Terry, and you just can't see anyone coming in of that sort of quality.
I mean, we had the time when people like Jamie Carragher couldn't get anywhere near the team. And you look at the quality that he was, and you had Ferdinand and Campbell and Terry, like you say, all ahead of him. And now, what we would give for one of those four to someone just of that quality to just,
I think the nearest we're going to get now is Joe Gomez, but with him, he's going to need a lot more game time at Liverpool.
Yeah, he's been unlucky with injuries, hasn't he? But he's going to... I think he's been starting recently, so... Yeah,
well, it's 1-1 at the moment, the Liverpool Arsenal game.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're on the ball, Chris.
Because, Arsenal took the lead with Lacazette, and then Mane has equalised, which is good for my dream team. But from what I can tell, Liverpool are all over Arsenal at the moment, and Gomez is playing. So
There we go.
Arsenal have gone for a back five with Tierney, Louise, and Holding as their centre backs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
El Nenny's playing
Has
as
played
well.
there for Scotland, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll see how that goes on for Steve Aubameyang score. That'd be quite helpful, but yeah. Right. Now, we are going to try and look at this handball rule. Now, I spoke to Liam before we started recording, and I said to him, I think my exact words were, I've read the rules, and I'm actually more confused now than what I was. I didn't know anything, which just seems mad. It seems madness, right, that this rule has seemed to come into play, and no one seems to know what's going on. We're getting penalties, like Eric Dyer's penalty yesterday. It was just
stupid.
So, well, no, I know it's Tottenham. I know we love to see Tottenham dropping points, but how mad would you be if you were Jose Mourinho after that?
I'd be furious.
And I know Hodgson. There was let's say Lampard, Hodgson, and another manager's come out in their press conference today and said they think that they need to look at the rule again. But I'm really confused about that. It seems that it's very biased in sort of the attacking player's favour now. Yeah. It seems like if the attacker does handle the ball, it's not necessarily handball, depending on about 15 other different rules that they've got. But if you're a defender now and it hits you on the arm, you're going to be in trouble, from what I could gather. So it's still anything below the armpit is deemed handball. And I'm assuming the intent rule is still there, but if a shot goes towards goal and your hand is, even by your side, it looks like it's going to be given against you now. So I'm so confused, Liam.
No, I know, me too. I think the Dyer one worst example because he wasn't looking at the ball. In fact, his whole back was turned. It was point blank.
Yeah.
And yes, it hits his arm, but unless you're going to say every time a ball hits a player's arm, we're going to play for handball, that isn't a penalty. There's no way that can be.
No.
So one thing I think that annoys me more than anything is the consistency across the whole pitch, because if that had happened the other way round and it was a defender heading it and against an attacker's arm, by the rules, I think that's not handball.
No.
It looks like, because there's been season. I remember last season the criticism that they got was basically every time the ball hit an attacker's arm and there was a goal scored, then the goal got ruled out. So they've done away with that, but they've now flipped it on its head and basically said anytime it hits a defender's arm, it's going to be a penalty or a free kick, which we didn't want that. We just wanted that rule to be done with.
Although,
I think the reason they brought it in, according to Match of the Day, was so that we can be aligned with the rest of Europe, because I believe that is the rule across La Liga and all the other leagues. So I think the idea was that it was going to make it fairer for English teams in Europe. But we've known ever since I can certainly remember that playing Champions League football is always going to be different to playing Premier League football. You always know the type of footballer and the type of referee is going to be different. So you adapt your game to it. And that's what I think is stupid. Why are we looking at the rules in other countries and saying, well, we'll bend to your way of doing it? But there was about 4 penalties this weekend. I think the Crystal Palace one was harsh against Ward. The Man United penalty, it was stupid in the way it was handled because he blown the full-time whistle. But to me, that was more of a penalty than the others because his hand raised. His hand is above, and it seemed a bit silly. Although he wasn't looking at the ball, you can see that his arm's in an unusual place to try and block it. So I can understand it, even if it was handled really poorly. But yeah, there was. I think there was more. I think I probably missed some.
Well,
this weekend. That was stupid.
The third Chelsea goal. Havertz. It hit Havertz on the arm.
Exactly. Yeah.
And last season,
that
that
would
wouldn't
have been
been
disallowed.
given. So
And if it had hit a defender, it would have been a penalty. So I don't understand the difference. How can it happen in one box and not be given, but happen in the other?
Well,
I don't know.
The managers are calling for a review on it. I hardly doubt that they're going to change their mind on this now.
It'll be next season, won't it? I think.
But we'll wait and see.
But it is confusing.
But it's going to cost teams, I think, this season. I know it's a rule, so it's there now, so they need to start, learning them. But it's going to make it a lot easier for attackers now to sort of, bring the ball down. Doesn't matter if you chest it, just arm it down, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
But,
Yeah, and this whole, it has to be within the silhouette of the player. And if your hands are within the silhouette of the player, why don't you just make it just separate? If it looks like he's done it on purpose, then give a penalty. If it doesn't look like it's been done on purpose, yeah. I don't know. The whole reason you've got VAR is so that you can make those decisions now, not look at the fine, 1 yard blast from an attacker straight into an arm. I just think it's a bit stupid and it's a bit of a waste of time, really.
Yeah, it certainly gave me a bit of a headache learning about that today, anyway. Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll leave that there. I don't think we.
I'm sure we'll come back to it. I'm sure we'll come back to it.
It will probably be a running theme throughout the whole of this season, I think, of what's happening. But Liverpool have taken the lead. Andy Robertson has scored. Yeah. So it's 2-1. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. We're back in part 2 with a story from Liam. And I've got some Wonders of White, and I'm going to try and guess Liam's teaser as well. So we'll be back in part 2. Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of View from the Sideline podcast. We're going to go straight into Liam's story. So, Liam, what have you got this week?
So, during the story section so far, we've been all over the world, all through different times. But this week, we're actually going to stick close to home and a story that took place this very weekend. So as we all know, coronavirus, obviously it's been everywhere. It's postponed this season. You can blame it for a lot of things this year. But it's very rare that you can blame COVID-19 on arriving late for a game. So basically, this happened to Oxford United this weekend, playing away to Accrington Stanley. And as part of their COVID-19 precautions, everyone was using alcohol-based sprays and gels to ensure they kept hygienic when they were sanitising. Unfortunately, this included a system on the bus that sanitised the seats and the interior prior to them leaving the match. And as a cruel twist of fate, someone left the breathalyzer that the driver has to use before the coach can start when the alcohol spray was being deployed in the bus. So, cue the coach shutting itself down for 6 hours as a precaution because it thought the driver had failed his breathalyzer test, and all of the Oxford players and coaches had to make their own way from Oxford to Accrington, which is a very long way. So the bus shut down once it realised that the driver, or it thought that the driver had tested positive for alcohol. It thought the driver was drunk, and so the fail-safe is for the coach to completely shut down for 6 hours. They all made their own way in cars, taxis, trains, basically however they could get there. So they were very late arriving into Accrington. But it didn't have an effect on them because they picked up their first win of the season quite emphatically by 4-1. So, the coach didn't do them any harm in the end.
Did one of the players lift his shirt up when he scored and had a picture of the coach driver on there?
I wish. I think it will happen a bit too quick for that. But, yeah, it would have been nice.
Oh, dear. That's quite funny. Is this why you told me not to look at anything to do with that match?
Yes, basically. Cause
I didn't even know the score.
First from me.
Right. That's quite a funny
I
story.
didn't want you having a look and finding it and going, oh, I know what happened there, and then switching off. So hopefully no one else has heard that either. But it was on the Quest Championship highlight package that they play out there. So that was quite funny this week.
I used to watch that when the overall won there.
Oh, I used to watch that when Villa were there as well, but we're now not for very different reasons.
Colin Murray used to present that. I don't think he does anymore, does he?
He still is.
He still does he?
Still on it. Yeah, he's still on it. He's bold now.
Oh. He's still on the radio though, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. He's quite busy, I think.
Cool.
He's never off.
Right. Well, thanks for the story. I wonder how that driver must have felt when the coach just shut down. He was like, oh God.
Maybe he felt relieved. Maybe he had actually failed the test and was just using this as an excuse. Yeah. Maybe he'd had a heavy Friday night and who knows? But you'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Right. Let's move on to the wonders of white. Now, one of these wonders of white is there's a bit of explanation behind it. I did some research about something I found out, so I'll save that until last. So first up, since the 17-18 season, only Mo Salah and Aguero have scored more home league goals in England's top 4 tiers than West Ham's Jared Bowen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he got another couple this weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, add to that tally.
Yeah.
Since stats began for goal times in 2006, Callum Wilson's penalty is the latest any side has scored with their first shot on target in the Premier League.
Yeah, that probably goes to show how Spurs dominated that.
Yeah, that was their only shot on. Only shot. So we've got 2 4-on-1s now. First up is German. So Schalke lost their second Bundesliga game and now are 1 goal and 11 conceded. And this is actually the worst start by any team in that league since records began. And unfortunately, that has also meant that David Wagner was sacked as well after 2 games in the league. So
that's early time to get rid of him, isn't it?
Yeah. So they lost 8 or 9-0 to Bayern Munich, didn't they? First game of the season, and then they lost to Wolfsburg 3-1 at the weekend. Bayern Munich lost as well, and Dortmund lost. So it was a bad weekend for the big German teams. So this is a new. So this is in La Liga, and this is actually 2 players actually broke the same record this weekend. So Lionel Messi is now the 4th player to score in La Liga history in 17 consecutive seasons. And he actually was joined by another player this weekend in Sergio Ramos, who's also now scored in 17 consecutive La Liga seasons. So this got me thinking, who's number 1? So after a bit of research, it's a guy called, oh God, you know what I'm like, Ganzia. I think that's what we're going to call him. So Ganzia actually played for Bilbao between 1940 and 1959. And he actually holds the record at the moment for he scored in 19 consecutive league seasons. Before Adruiz in 2017, he was actually holding the record for the youngest and the oldest goal scorer for the club.
Wow.
He captained Spain in the 1950 World Cup. And according to Wikipedia, he didn't even like football. I don't know why they mentioned that on there. But his brother also played for Bilbao. It was actually his older brother, that basically told him he should start playing football. And he actually got into the Bilbao side before his brother did. Yeah. So he's there for 19 seasons in Bilbao, and he's got the, I think he's most capped player for them as well. 463 games he played in 19 seasons.
That is him.
So he actually holds the record. So if Messi can hold up for another 3 seasons, he actually beat that record. As will Sergio Ramos. So yeah, that's the wonders of life.
Sergio Ramos, the goal-scoring defender.
Yeah.
God, every year.
So right, your teaser.
Yeah.
Right, so he started in Australia.
He did. He started for the Melbourne Knights in 1993. And he then went to Croatia with Dynamo Zagreb.
It's a very strange.
He moved above the border to Celtic and then into English football with Leeds, Middlesbrough, and finally Newcastle.
See, the only player I can think of that's Australian that has played for Leeds is Mark Viduka. So I'm just going to say Mark Viduka.
You've got some good logic there. Yes, it is Mark Viduka.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll say this: I don't remember him playing for Newcastle.
No, neither did I.
But I remember
This is why I was quite surprised.
Yeah, I knew that he played for Leeds and Celtic. Middlesbrough, I was a bit unsure, but I remembered.
So his goal-scoring record. So basically, the reason looked into this is because I was just looking at sort of old seasons and stuff like that, as you sort of do. And I noticed that Mark Viduka's name was on a Newcastle team sheet. I thought, I don't remember him playing for Newcastle. So I thought I'd have a look at his history, and I thought I could use it for the little quiz today. I know how you follow the A-League, so I thought maybe Melbourne Knights might be a good clue for you.
Well, yeah.
They're not there anymore,
but
anymore, I thought, yeah.
but thought
you might have a chance of getting it with it being an Australian player. But his actual goal-scoring record is basically 1 in 2, which is not bad for someone who played in the Premier League for almost 10 years.
That is good. I think he's probably most known for his time at Leeds. I would have thought out of the ones.
I think so. Obviously, he was there. He probably would have been there longer if they hadn't have.
He was part of the Champions League. He was part of that Champions League side. They got to the semi-final, wouldn't he?
I think he was in
the
early noughties. I think it was. Just having a look at his stats, it says 2001 they played 16 games in Europe, so I'm assuming it was that year. But, he seemed to score goals wherever he went. Basically, he struggled a little bit at Middlesbrough, and then obviously as he got a little bit older at Newcastle. But he basically back in Australia he was averaging about a goal a game, and then to make the move over to Croatia and then to Celtic, he was averaging almost a goal a game again. And stuck it out in the league, in the Premier League, and he actually was one of the few Australians that probably really shined. I can only really think of Harry Kewell and maybe Tim Cahill.
I think Cahill.
But he did make the jump.
There's
a couple of keepers, weren't there? Schwarzer probably did quite well.
Yeah, Mark Bosnich.
A Villa legend, if not a legend in your eyes.
Well, yeah, he's probably one of the very few players that have played for both our clubs, to be fair. There's not many.
Not too many. Gary Cahill. There might be one more coming up soon, because the longer the transfer window goes on, the more we're rumoured to be loaning either Loftus-Cheek or Ross Barkley. So
to be fair,
maybe next week we'll be talking about one of your guys joining us.
I'd actually prefer you to take Loftus-Cheek, because I think he probably, out of the both of them, needs more game time. I think. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Barkley.
To be fair, I think I'd be quite happy with both of them.
Yeah.
Well, either of them, I should say. I don't think we're allowed both.
Water,
I think the rules are.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, drink water.
Yeah.
That was such a roaring success last year.
Yeah.
No, we don't want him back, thanks.
Well, you do need someone to drive him to training, so he's not allowed.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I got that one right, so
Well
happy
done.
with that. But that was a little. I think him starting at Australia was probably the biggest, the giveaway. I think there.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's probably only about 4 or 5 decent Australian players that have come to the Premier League, and you didn't say Liverpool, so that was not Kiel. You didn't say Fulham, so and Chelsea, it's not Swapshire. So yeah, no, happy with that.
Also played for you.
He was there. Well, yeah, he was there for. I think he was there for like 3 or 4 seasons. I think. But, yeah. Anything else?
Nothing else
So
from me other than Villa are going to get into Europe. Obviously, just wanted to add that in there with flying.
So we'll have a Yeovil update next week because the season kicks off on Saturday. So
Who have you got?
Kings Lynn away.
Ooh, the new boys.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. They've not done too bad in the friendlies, Yeovil. They started off pretty poorly, to be fair, but they played Bournemouth under 23 on Saturday, lost 3-2. Charlie Daniels was playing for Bournemouth. Yeah, he's like 33, 34 now. He actually scored. The only reason I knew he was playing is because he actually scored for them. So, but I think he was the only really sort of senior player that I knew of. But yeah, so we'll do a bit on Yeovil next week. Maybe just look at the players that are there now, because I'm sure they've probably changed from what you knew last season. So Reece Murphy's still there, so we've still got goals.
Bags of goals.
Yeah, I think they really need to kick it off this season. Financially, I think more than anything now they need to get up. He released a statement today saying that they reckon, each sort of National League side is going to have lost about 1.3 million. So that's a huge sum of money, isn't it? Huge sum of money. So they did a test as well last Tuesday against Bath. Huge Park, they had 1,000 fans in the stadium, but then obviously a day later the government released saying that they won't be allowing fans back into the stadium. So it's obviously,
I think a lot of the clubs around that level are really going to struggle now.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. I think he seems to think the government are working on something that they can hopefully secure their survival. Yeovil did really well with crowdfunding. They raised a lot of money as well. So, I think this will bring teams together, and unfortunately, it's going to break a few teams as well. So I think we'll start seeing maybe a few teams dropping out, but I think we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah. So we'll have a bit more on that next week. But that's it from me. And you, Liam?
Yeah, that's it from me.
Right, so see you next week.